Welcome once again to the Brownstone, Wolfe's sanctuary of logic, orchids, and murder. Do tell us where in the world you're listening from, and don't hesitate to share your thoughts. If you enjoy these cases, consider liking and subscribing. Now then, shall we begin? Nero Wolfe and the disappearance at the Iron Watch chain. The call came at 10:47 p.m, which was nearly 3 hours after Wolfe had declared that no man who interrupted his digestion after 10 should be trusted with the truth. I answered it because Fritz, as he does without fail, refused to cross the threshold of the front room when the clock struck 10. The voice on the other end was uneven, clipped, breathless, and twisted into syllables like it didn't trust itself. Is this Mr. Goodwin? It is, I replied, watching the door to the dining room stay resolutely closed. Who's this? My name is Hal Drayden. I'm a lawyer. I need to speak to Mr. Wolfe. Please, it's about my brother. He's gone. He stopped. Gone? I said, sharpening the word just enough. As in left town or left this earth? There was a pause. Vanished. He left an auction 2 nights ago. He never came home. I looked at the wall clock. Then, with no small effort, I interrupted Wolfe's late dessert. 10 minutes later, Hal Drayden stood in our front room, clinging to a leather briefcase like it might start whispering back. He was the kind of man you'd expect to take 2 aspirin for a stubbed toe. Mid-30s, bespectacled, pale hands, and a voice that cracked every 4th syllable like it owed someone rent. I know how this sounds, he said as Wolfe lowered himself into the yellow chair, but my brother isn't someone who disappears. You are a lawyer, Wolfe said, his voice smooth but entirely indifferent. You're presumably accustomed to hyperbole. Yes, sir, but not from Nathaniel. My brother, he deals in antiques, real ones, paper trails, customs records, sealed crates, not flea markets. Wolfe rested both hands across his considerable middle and nodded once, allowing me to fill the air. He vanished after an auction? I asked. Hal clutched the briefcase tighter. Yes, Monday evening, lot 47. He called me just after the bidding, said he'd won something important, something unusual. Then he stopped answering. No note, no call. His car was left outside his building. The lot number was tied to an item labelled only as the Iron Watch chain. Wolfe grunted. Is that the item's full description? That's all the auction sheet said. It was sold at a private catalogue only event on East 61st, invitation only. The chain wasn't in the preview images. My brother said it was older than it should have been. 1860s, possibly earlier. Chain of what material? Wolfe asked. Hal blinked. He didn't say, just that it had an engraving and a clasp, unlike anything he'd seen. Then you are not sure the object exists at all, Wolfe said, and it wasn't a question. Hal winced. I have these. He opened the briefcase. Inside were a folded auction pamphlet, a receipt for lot 47, and a telegram stub addressed to N. Drayden, Lafayette Arms, Apt 5C. The telegram was unsigned. Wolfe gestured, and I took the papers. Where is Lafayette Arms? I asked. Upper West Side, West 74th. Have you informed the police? Wolfe asked. I tried. They said it wasn't a crime, just a man leaving town. And did he? No. His suitcase was untouched. His passport's in the drawer. And he was supposed to meet a client the next morning, a museum donor. He never showed. That's not like him. Wolfe exhaled. You are here because the police have declined to assume something unfortunate. Hal nodded. They think I'm hysterical. I'm not. I know my brother. He was scared before the auction. He told me, if anything happened, to come here. That earned Wolfe's brow. He instructed you to come to me? Yes. He said, if he didn't return by Wednesday night, I was to find you. Wolfe looked at me. Archie, what day is it? Wednesday, I said, 10 minutes to midnight. Wolfe grunted. He leaned back, drummed his fingers, then closed his eyes. I dislike missing persons. There's too much room for sentimentality. However, Mr. Drayden, if your brother acquired an object whose provenance remains uncertain, and whose history is inconvenient, it is conceivable that object, not the man, was the intended target. Hal swallowed. You think someone wanted the chain? I think, Wolfe said, you're not telling us everything. Hal shifted. He looked down. There were rumours. Of course, Wolfe murmured. There always are. Hal continued, his voice lowering. Nathaniel said the chain wasn't just old, it came from someone who shouldn't have had it. A southern family with ties to missing union payroll funds. He said the chain might be part of a larger symbol. Symbol of what? I asked. I don't know. Wolfe opened his eyes. Was your brother in possession of the chain when last seen? Yes. Was he alone? He drove himself to the auction. He left with it. The doorman saw him return to the apartment, but no one saw him leave. No staff, no deliveries? I asked. Nothing. Wolfe closed his eyes again. Archie, I have no intention of chasing shadows in antique circles. However, if this item is what it claims to be, and if Mr. Drayden is correct about its implications, then I suppose it warrants attention. I dislike relics. They tend to attract fools. Hal leaned forward. You'll take the case? That, Wolfe said, depends. Archie will inspect the auction house. You will remain reachable. Fritz, pen and envelope. I stood. What name is on the auction? Hal hesitated. Barrowhide. Discreet, high-end members only. On East 61st, just past Lex. Wolfe waved his fingers. Then off you go, Mr. Goodwin. It appears we are now in the business of vanished chains. I saw Hal out and returned to the office. Wolfe hadn't moved. He was staring at the papers like they'd tried to insult him. He knew to send his brother to you, I said. That means something. Wolfe didn't answer. He tapped a finger once against the telegram stub. There is no signature, no originating office, just type. Could be forged, I said. Could be, Wolfe agreed. But I don't think so. There is hesitation in it. Look here. He used ellipses, 3 dots where none were necessary. That is the mark of someone uncertain, someone who expects it to be read by someone who knows him. You think Nathaniel typed this himself? Yes, I do. I watched him shift in the chair. Not much, just enough to lift his arm and reach for the bell. Fritz, he called. Tomorrow I will require corned beef hash and sliced beets with lemon. That will do. Then back to me. Archie, begin with the auction house. Charm them if necessary. Bribe them only if you must. I want to know who bid on that chain, who lost, and who had reason to resent it. What about the chain itself? I asked. If it exists, Wolfe murmured, it will emerge. If it does not, then someone has taken great pains to make sure it never does. Both are intriguing. I picked up my coat. Shall I carry a weapon? Only your tongue, Mr. Goodwin, Wolfe said. It is sufficiently dangerous. I left him in the warm glow of the lamp, the red leather chairs reflecting just enough light to make the place feel smaller than it was. Outside the rain had started, slow and steady. I pulled up my collar. The night felt like the first page of a story someone had tried to burn, but hadn't finished. Not yet. If I ever wanted to meet the kind of person who polished shadows for a living, I'd come to the right place. The Barrowhide auction house sat behind a frosted glass door on East 61st, nestled between a kosher tailor's and an antique clock repairman who hadn't opened before noon in 10 years. The building didn't advertise its presence. That was the point. The foyer was trimmed in mahogany, smelled faintly of lavender wax, and featured no receptionist. Just a heavy door with a brass lion head knocker and a silver bell wired to buzz, not ring. I pressed the bell twice. On the third try it gave a dry mechanical bark. A moment later a man opened the door just enough to peer through. He was mid-50s, face lean, hair neat and parted. Jacket tan, pocket square black. He studied me with the distant concern of someone checking milk for expiration. May I help you? My name's Goodwin, I said. I'd like a word about one of your recent lots, number 47. Do you represent someone? I smiled. I represent truth, justice, and a man with a yellow chair. That didn't get a laugh, but it did get the door open. He motioned me in and walked without speaking, shoes whispering against the marble tiles. The hallway curved slightly, then opened to a room full of dark walnut green lampshades and walls lined with catalogue slips under glass. He stopped beside a narrow desk and gestured for me to sit. I did. My name is Ellis Stray. I manage this branch. We don't typically speak with press or third parties. I'm not press, I said, and I'm not asking for a list of your clients. I'm here because one of them is missing. That drew a pause. His lips folded once over the other. Nathaniel Drayden, he said quietly. Got it in one. He won lot 47, the iron watch chain. I know, I said. What I don't know is what that chain was, or who wanted it badly enough to put a tail on him afterward. He didn't blink, just turned, stepped to a small cabinet, and withdrew a paper file. When he laid it open, I saw 6 carbon duplicates of the auction ledger. One copy bore Nathaniel Drayden's name, time stamped and signed. The item in question, Stray said, was undocumented. It came from an estate out of Virginia. The consignor requested anonymity, which we are bound to uphold. However, he flipped a sheet. The chain was described as Civil War period. Iron alloy, not steel. Unusual clasp. Surface inscription that had eroded or been intentionally obscured. We logged it under General Americana with no provenance beyond the seller's attestation. How did it make it into such a high-end catalogue? It was originally scheduled for private lot preview only, he said. No photographs. The consignor provided verbal history. It was included after a last-minute withdrawal by another seller. We were behind on printing. It filled a gap. And Mr. Drayden bid aggressively. Stray nodded. There were 6 bids. He won it for $200 above estimate. Anyone seem upset by that? Stray's fingers paused at the ledger. 3. Dora Reuel Hammond from the Metropolitan Historical Wing. He'd requested the chain be evaluated for national artifact status. We declined. Miss Corinne Vale, a silent bidder known in minor circles, and a man using the name R. Bexley, unvetted, cash qualified. Any of them speak to Drayden? Not here, he said. Though Miss Vale watched him leave, I noticed. She never bids aloud, writes everything, always in violet ink. Do you know where to find her? No, he said. She leaves no address, has mail sent to a box in Lower Manhattan. What about the Bexley? Stray frowned. Didn't sign in, paid with clean bills, left before the end of the catalogue. And Hammond? Left quietly, but he asked twice about the chain afterward, wanted the name of the buyer. I refused, of course. I leaned back. Any chance you can show me the lot's packaging? What the chain came in? He hesitated. That would be irregular. So's a man vanishing. Stray considered, then stood. Come with me. He led me through a service hallway lined with locked cabinets. At the end stood a door marked Intake, Archives. Inside, a narrow table stood under a hanging light bulb. He walked to a tall rack, opened a metal drawer and retrieved a box no larger than a paperback book. This is the box. It was old. Worn red felt outside, silk lining inside with a slight stain in one corner. There was no maker's mark. Chain sat diagonally, he said. Thin padding beneath. I lifted the box and felt something shift, just slightly. I looked at Stray. May I? He gave a slow nod. I pressed the felt near the hinge. Something gave way. A false bottom. Inside lay a thin piece of folded cloth frayed at the edges, bearing the faint embroidery of a Union eagle. I unfolded it gently. Stray looked like he'd seen a ghost. That wasn't there before, he said. I folded it again. Or it was, and someone made sure no one found it. There was silence, just the bulb buzzing faintly overhead. Do you believe Mr. Drayden is in danger? I believe he was curious, I said, and some men prefer their ghosts undisturbed. Back in the front room, Stray handed me a slip of paper. This is the box number for Miss Vale's mail service. It's all I can offer. It's more than I expected, I said. Much appreciated. He nodded once. Mr. Goodwin, do be careful, this is not just about a chain. I had that impression, I said. The rain had eased to mist by the time I stepped outside. The street was quiet, yellow puddles reflecting the glow of lamps. I walked east, letting the wind pull my thoughts into line. 3 people had wanted that chain badly. 1 got it. Now he was gone. A half-hour later, I pushed open the door to a narrow lobby off Canal. The place was called Monarch Receiving. A sour-faced clerk sat behind bulletproof glass. Box 914, I said. He blinked. You got a key? Not yet. I'm looking for the person who does. Miss Corinne Vale. The name made his eye twitch. He leaned toward the mic. She don't come often. Leaves cash in the slot, collects letters. Once a week, maybe. When was the last time? He checked a ledger. Monday morning, before noon. That was hours before the auction. Can I leave a message? I asked. He passed me a card. I wrote a note. Urgent matter regarding Lot 47. Please contact Mr. Goodwin, CEO Nero Wolfe, West 35th Street. He read it. You one of them museum types? Not quite, I said. More of a gardener. I left him squinting after me as I stepped back into the street. My next stop was the Metropolitan Museum's side offices on 82nd. I didn't have an appointment, but sometimes the right name and a clean hat go further than a badge. The receptionist looked up. Can I help you? Dr. Reuel Hammond. Tell him it's about the iron watch chain. That did it. 10 minutes later, I was in a beige office that smelled of old paper and ego. Hammond stood behind a desk the size of a billiard table. He didn't offer to shake. I was told you were investigating Lot 47. I am, I said. On behalf of someone who's concerned its winner didn't get to enjoy it. He sniffed. Drayden. You knew him. He was a collector, a dilettante. Bought pieces he didn't understand. Thought ownership made him an authority. You wanted the chain, I said. I wanted it preserved, not dissected. That item had federal markings, potential links to wartime logistics. It should have been secured. Why wasn't it? The auction house doesn't answer to the Smithsonian, he said. You asked about the buyer afterward. Yes, they refuse. Did you follow him? His mouth thinned. I inquired, nothing more. You went to the auction? I was present, he said. I left before the lot closed. I didn't bid. That's not what the ledger says. He stiffened. You've seen it? I let the silence speak for me. I placed one bid, he said. Reflex, then withdrew. Why? I saw Miss Vale arrive. She has connections I won't touch. What kind of connections? He didn't answer. Is she dangerous? I asked. She's protected. Her family's old. She appears when items linked to Confederate gold change hands. That was new. I filed it. Where were you the next evening? I asked. Home. I have staff. Mind if I verify that? Do what you like, he said, but don't mistake scholarly interest for criminal intent. I try not to, I said, but some scholars dig too deep. Back at the brownstone, I handed Wolfe the cloth. He didn't touch it, just looked at it. Miss Vale, he asked. Left a mailbox and disappeared. Hammond lied about bidding. Stray found a hidden panel. I think this chain's less jewellery and more breadcrumb. Wolfe closed his eyes. A collector's appetite, he murmured, is often the most dangerous kind. I nodded. Nathaniel Drayden didn't just buy a chain, sir. He found the first thread in a knot someone's been tightening since Appomattox. Wolfe tapped his fingers once. Then let us pull, he said, but gently, gently. The cab let me off at precisely 4:05. The walk from the curb to the brownstone door was exactly 17 steps, 12 in front of the wrought iron fence, 5 more after the gate clicked shut behind me. I opened the front door with my key. Fritz was in the hallway, polishing the banister with a cloth he might have embroidered himself. Mr. Wolfe is in the office, he said, with a disposition. Hot or cold? Simmering. I hung my coat, adjusted my tie, and moved toward the office. The smell of coffee was strong. So was the silence. Wolfe sat in the yellow chair with his eyes closed, index fingers pressed together beneath his chin like a bridge for thought. On the desk in front of him sat the folded cloth I'd brought, the one from the false bottom of the box. Next to it his notebook lay open, its left-hand margin a parade ground of tidy dashes and loops. Fritz appeared behind me with a tray. He poured coffee, 1 cup for Wolfe, 1 for me, then he left without comment. I waited until the door clicked shut. Wolfe lifted his eyelids 1/2 an inch. Well, he said. I have names, I said. Faces, too, and a couple of gut instincts I'd trust over a notarized affidavit. You will provide them in order, he said. I did. Ellis Stray, I began, is the manager at Barrow Hyde. Reserved type, formal. He says Nathaniel Drayden won the chain fair and square, though 3 bidders clearly had longer teeth than budgets. One was a museum man named Hammond, one was a woman who doesn't speak, and the third gave a name no one believes. I paused. Wolfe did not blink. Miss Corinne Vale, I continued, bids with violet ink, never speaks. According to Stray, she watched Nathaniel leave with the chain. Didn't follow him, but didn't blink either. The third was a cash man using R. Bexley, never registered. Paid cash, left early. None of them spoke to Drayden, Wolfe asked. Not on sight. But Hammond's lied at least once. He told me he never bid. The auction book says otherwise. He claimed he left before the chain came up, but Stray remembers him pacing when the lot opened. Wolfe let his eyes close again. I took a sip, then placed the cup back. Has a mailbox on canal. Monarch receiving, box 913. She last collected mail Monday morning, hours before the auction. The clerk says she comes in weekly, no regular pattern, pays in cash. Wolfe made a low sound, not quite a grunt, more of a filtered sigh. I spoke to Hammond at the Met, I continued. He postures like a scholar but plays defence like a suspect. Claimed he didn't pursue the chain, then admitted he did, said it belonged in a museum. Wolfe opened his eyes. So did Indiana Jones. Only this guy's more interested in keeping things buried than putting them under glass. Wolfe shifted in his chair. Describe the cloth again. Hand-stitched, blue-grey, frayed edges, folded once. You could miss it if you weren't looking. And yet, Wolfe said, it was found. I nodded. The box gave when I pressed the liner near the hinge. It felt like it hadn't been touched in decades. Wolfe picked up the cloth with the tips of 2 fingers, examined it like it might contain plague. Thread count is inconsistent, he muttered. Primitive, likely civilian work, but made for military use. He lowered it back to the desk. Archie, what do you make of Mr. Drayden? What Hal says, sharp, serious, cautious, and more scared than he let on. Scared of whom? Good question, I said. He told Hal that if something happened to him, he should come to you. That means he knew the chain was dangerous, or thought it was. Then he anticipated a consequence, Wolfe said. Yes, which makes me think he didn't just stumble onto something. He was following a thread. The auction wasn't chance, it was a culmination. Wolfe made a fist and tapped it once against the armrest. The chain, he said. Itself meaningless. Iron, no intrinsic value, symbolism perhaps, sentiment. But combined with this cloth, a signal, a legacy of some sort. I nodded. You think it ties back to the war? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. The payroll chest was declared missing. 4 men vanished. 1 turned up dead near Vicksburg. My grandfather retired without honours. Drayden had this? He took it from my aunt's estate. She was dying. He offered to catalogue the papers. The chain was in the same box. You think he stole it? I don't think, she said. I know. He contacted me 2 days later. Said he'd share the chain's secret for a price. What price? She turned. Silence. He wanted me to corroborate his version, that the chain was a gift, that the letter had no meaning. And you refused. I did. I looked again at the letter. You think the chain leads to the chest? She didn't move. It was a cipher. A message disguised as jewellery. My grandfather wasn't hiding vanity. He was hiding guilt. Did Drayden find it? I don't know. Do you have a copy of the chain? She shook her head. He sent a sketch, crude, markings I didn't recognise. May I see it? She hesitated, then opened the case on the bed. From beneath a folded shawl she pulled a notebook. She handed it over. The sketch showed a loop of iron segmented. 1 clasp bore a diagonal notch, the other a raised wedge. Along the spine were 6 marks, 4 dots, 2 triangles. Coordinates? I asked. She didn't answer. Or a sequence, numbers hidden as symbols. He thought so. And then? He vanished. When? Tuesday. He called me Monday night. Said he was close, said I had 1 more chance to make peace. And you said no. Her voice dropped. I told him I didn't make peace with liars. I folded the letter. I need to verify this. Would you come with me? She stepped back. No, I've said too much. You're in danger, I said. She turned to the window. Not yet. I moved to the door. Something happens to you, this letter goes with it. So does your Sti. I've left copies, she said. If I'm found, they won't be. I paused. Are you trying to vanish? No, she said. I'm trying to survive. I stepped out. She closed the door behind me. 2 minutes later I turned back. The hallway was empty, the room locked. Inside, no reply. She was gone, and the letter with her. The Metropolitan Historical Wing was 3 stories of marble, mahogany, and underpaid scholarship. I stepped past a tour group dissecting an old artillery saddle and followed the brass signs to the curatorial offices. Derul Hammond's name was stencilled cleanly on frosted glass. I knocked once. A voice responded. Clipped. Dry. Enter. He was standing beside a tall display cabinet of scale models, Civil War telegraph poles, cutaways of trench lines, brass-plated buttons behind thick glass. The man himself wore grey worsted, square glasses, and a gaze sharpened by 30 years of staff budgets and professional resentment. Mr. Goodwin? That's right. You requested a meeting regarding an artefact sold at auction? I did. Lot 47, Barrow Hyde Auction House, the Iron Watch chain. He didn't blink. Never heard of it. I'm told you were there. You were misinformed. You placed a bid. That's incorrect. He moved to his desk, gestured toward the chair opposite. I sat. I do not attend public auctions, he said. Nor do I participate in the pageantry of estate scavenging. The museum relies on donations, endowments, and verified provenance. You're on the ledger, Doctor. He frowned. A single bid withdrawn before it cleared, I said. Your name, your handwriting, witnessed by the floor manager. That's absurd. Is it? He turned toward the window, hands behind his back. The item in question, this chain, was of disputed origin. No documentation, no inscription, no confirmation of wartime use. Yet you were interested. He stayed silent. You told the auction house the chain should have gone to your exhibit. Now he turned. That is not illegal. No, but it makes denial tricky. He sat. Mr. Goodwin, I did not attend that event, and I did not bid on any item. Then someone forged your name. His jaw tightened. Not likely. There was a knock. A woman stepped in, mid-40s, modest suit, glasses on a chain. Sorry, Doctor, just these files. She crossed the room. I noticed her sleeve brush the corner of his desk. She dropped a manila envelope. He nodded toward the bookshelf. She left. I picked up the envelope, opened it. Inside was a folded check stub. Payable to Barrow Hyde Appraisals, signed Rule Hammond, dated 2 days before the auction. I'd like to ask about this, I said. He didn't move. Your secretary just dropped it, I said. Deliberately. Paper can be very talkative, Doctor. He studied the stub. For a moment the weight of pretense fell away. I inquired about the item, he said. Privately. I requested they notify me if it proved authentic. You asked for advance notice. Barrow Hyde has discretion, he said. They occasionally consult with the institutional experts. But you didn't win. No. Who did? He hesitated. Drayden. You knew him. He was a collector, inconsistent judgment, prone to drama. You followed up with Barrow Hyde after he won. Asked for his contact, he glanced sharply. They declined, I said. But you asked. He tapped the edge of the desk. That chain was part of a family collection known to this institution, a Virginia estate. The catalogue never disclosed that. You believe it was stolen? I believe it was misrepresented. And you wanted it recovered. For academic purposes. Or suppressed, I said. His eyes narrowed. You knew what it meant, I said. You didn't want it public. He stood. Mr. Goodwin, this conversation is over. I rose with him. Miss Vale mentioned your interest in Confederate artefacts, I said. He froze. She said your name came up in Southern estate transfers, quiet ones. He walked to the door, opened it. You may leave. Doctor, I said, if you didn't want the chain, why did you try to buy it before it hit the floor? He said nothing. I stepped out. The secretary was filing papers. She didn't look up, but as I passed, she murmured, He hated the name Ash Bend. You should start there. I didn't slow down, just nodded. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was in the office, dictionary open, half reading and half ignoring the world. He looked up. Well? He lied, I said. Poorly. Denied attending. Denied bidding. Denied knowing Drayden. I have his cheque. I placed it on the desk. Ah, Wolfe said. Our first confirmed lie. He claims he only consulted. Nonsense, Wolfe muttered. A man does not forge his own cheque for consultation. He examined the signature. The date, he said, 2 days before the auction. He knew the chain was coming, I said. Might have even tried to intercept it. Wolfe frowned. Did he admit motive? No, but the secretary slipped me a name. Which? Ash Bend. Wolfe leaned back. Then we begin, he said, to narrow the circle. The front bell rang once, hard, fast, and entirely lacking in patience. Fritz didn't budge. He never does. So I answered it. Kramer stood on the stoop with his hat shoved back, his coat unbuttoned, and an expression like Kramer shook his head. "Give me bodies, not riddles." Wolfe closed the book. "We shall endeavour to provide both." That earned a grunt. Kramer turned for the door. "You find anything," he said, "and I mean anything. I want it. No orchids, no ego, just facts." "I shall endeavour," Wolfe replied, "to restrain my ego." Kramer left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. Wolfe didn't move. "Archie," he said, "fetch the address for Monarch Receiving. Box 913. "I have it." "Good. Send a telegram." "From whom?" "Drayden," Wolfe said. "Have it typed. Use the exact language he'd employ. Cautious. Indirect. Enough to draw her." I reached for the phone. "What's the bait?" "Tell her the chain is safe, that the letter is not, that a meeting is necessary." "When?" "Tomorrow," Wolfe said. 5 o'clock, Algonquin Hotel, room 407. You'll be there. Quiet, armed only with questions. And if she doesn't come, she will. I called the Western Union office on 8th and dictated the message. "Miss C. Vale, stop. The chain is intact. Stop. The letter is not. Stop. Room 407, Algonquin, 5 p.m. Must speak. Stop. ND." Wolfe nodded. She will believe he survived. Hope is a sharp hook. "And if someone else bites?" He allowed himself a faint smile. "Then we reel," he said, "and see what we've caught." The Algonquin's room 407 hadn't changed in 10 years. Still smelled of hotel starch and quiet wealth. I got there an hour early, checked the lock twice, drew the curtains halfway, left the lamp on low. Wolfe's instructions were precise: no drama, no drinks, and no direct accusations, not until both fish were in the net. The telegram had done its job. Both had taken the bait. At 4:58, she knocked. I opened the door. Miss Corinne Vale wore grey, a coat with a tight collar, gloves one shade darker, and a handbag so light it could have been empty. Her hair was pinned, her face unreadable. "You sent the telegram." "I sent a telegram," I said. "Come in." She stepped inside without a word. I closed the door behind her. "I came alone," she said. I didn't ask. She crossed to the window, looked down into the street below. "The letter," she said. "Where is it?" "I didn't say I had it." "You said it wasn't safe." "Correct," she turned. "You're bluffing." "No," I said. "I'm not bluffing. I'm improvising. There's a difference. 5 o'clock. I didn't knock. I didn't move. The second knock came at 5:03. I opened the door. Dr. Rule Hammond stepped in wearing a camel hair coat and an expression like someone had insulted his lineage. "I expected Mr. Drayden." "So did I," I said. "Things don't always go as expected." He stopped short when he saw Miss Vale. She didn't flinch. "You?" he said. "You were watching him," she said. Hammond stepped forward. "You think I followed him?" "You told Barrow Hyde the chain belonged to your exhibit." "It did," Hammond snapped. "It was miscatalogued. That chain was part of the Ash Bend collection." "That doesn't make it yours," she said. Hammond's voice climbed. "Your grandfather was a thief." She took a step forward. "And yours was a coward." I raised a hand. "Easy. Both of you." "You set this up," Hammond said. "You lured me here under false pretenses. You came," I said, "voluntarily." "Under duress," he said. "That's not how telegrams work." Corinne pointed. "He's the one who sent men to my apartment." "I did no such thing." "I found your signature on the retrieval order." "You forged it." "Did I forge the check you sent to Barrow Hyde?" He paused. I stepped in. "Both of you had reason to want that chain. Both of you showed up after Nathaniel Drayden vanished. Both of you are lying." Hammond scoffed. "Where is Wolfe?" "Listening," I said. "As always." Corinne turned to me. "What do you want?" "Truth." She hesitated. "I didn't kill him," she said. "I didn't even see him after the auction." "But you threatened him," I said. She lowered her gaze. "I told him to give it back. I begged him. He laughed." Hammond crossed his arms. Drayden didn't care about history. He cared about leverage. He knew what the chain pointed to. He just didn't know how to read it. "You did?" I asked. "I did," he said. "I decoded it, and I told him what I found." "What was that?" He smiled bitterly. "A location. Coordinates hidden in the class, adjusted with the Union cipher key from 1864. He wouldn't believe me, thought I was misleading him." "Were you?" No, Miss Vale whispered. Where did it point? Hammond looked at her. Ash Bend. She stepped back. That's impossible. I followed the pattern. The clasp's edge was notched, the dashes and dots aligned to a cartographic grid. The triangle marks were elevation indicators. And the letter? She had it, Hammond said. It confirmed the destination. I stepped between them. Enough. Silence held for a moment. I looked at Hammond. What happened after the auction? I left, he said. I never saw him again. Corinne said nothing. I turned to her. Miss Vale? I went home, she said. I waited. Then I ran. Why? Because the night after the auction, someone tried to break into my apartment. They weren't quiet. I called the police. They never came. And then? I changed hotels. I stopped answering telegrams. I waited. Hammond scoffed. You had the letter. You had motive. You just didn't have the chain. Corinne's voice was steady. And you had both. If anyone has the chest, it's you. He froze. I stepped in. Wolfe says this isn't about who wanted the chain. It's about what the chain unlocks, neither replied. Wolfe wants to know what it doesn't say. They stared. The marks on the clasp. We've seen 6, but there's residue of a 7th, scraped away. Hammond blinked. Corinne turned pale. You both missed it, I said. But Wolfe didn't. I walked to the desk, took out a second copy of the chain sketch. There, I pointed. Next to the final triangle. A groove. No symbol, just blank metal. Hammond stepped forward. That's not on mine. Of course it's not, I said, because the symbol was deliberately removed, by someone who knew what it meant. Corinne whispered, it would have completed the sequence. Hammond whispered back, it would have made it traceable. And there it was, the thing Wolfe had asked for, not what the chain revealed, what it concealed. The Barrowhide auction house wasn't in the business of sentiment, but the basement smelled like memory anyhow, cardboard, cold stone, and the quiet hum of fluorescent tubes. I'd arranged for a private chat with someone named Kevin, full name Kevin Barris, junior clerk, flaxen hair, and a conscience just soft enough to bend. I'd called ahead pretending to be a catalogue consultant for a Delaware insurance firm, then showed up with no badge, but a notepad and a name Wolfe's reputation had already scuffed into their marble. Kevin met me at the freight elevator, nervous but not hostile. You're not with the police? He asked. Not even close, I said, but if you're worried about keeping your job, don't be. You're helping correct a catalogue error. He led me down a hall lined with lockers, paused at a steel door, then fished out a key. We log incoming lots here for insurance and photos. Some of them go upstairs, some get boxed up again. Most stay here until claimed or destroyed. Inside it was cooler. Crates lined the walls. Metal shelves housed velvet cases, file folders, and forgotten wealth. Kevin walked to a grey cabinet near the back. This was the container for Lot 47, the Iron Watch chain. He slid the drawer open. Inside sat a square red box with worn velvet sides and a satin-lined interior. I'd seen its twin before. This was it? Yes, sir. No damage on delivery? Not to this one, he said, and the original packaging, the crate, was weird. Burned on the inside, smelled like cinders. Still here? Kevin hesitated. Maybe. I smiled. Then let's find it. We checked the adjacent bins. 3rd row down, 5th unit from the end, beer bills. A wooden box no bigger than a hat case, blackened at the corners with warped brass hinges. Kevin set it on a rolling table and stepped back. Do you need gloves? He asked. Only if it bites, I said. The wood flaked under my touch. One latch gave easily, the other resisted. I slid a flat edge beneath it and pried. The top lifted. Inside, foam padding melted in places, a ring impression where the chain had once sat. But something else. Beneath the padding, a second box, scorched, metal, small. I pulled it gently into view. Kevin exhaled. Stamped on the lid were 3 faded letters. USP. US Post? Kevin asked. Or Paymaster, I said. The lid creaked. Inside, ash, grey-black fine, metal shavings, curled like filings from a lathe, and cloth, folded tight. I lifted it slowly. Blue wool, stiff with time, embroidered with the Union Eagle. No label, no stamp, but beneath it, A seam. I pressed lightly. Click. The bottom shifted. Compartment revealed itself, for thin as a blade. Empty. But it had held something. Kevin leaned in. What is that? A puzzle box, I said. The kind no one builds unless they're trying to hide something important. The ash swirled slightly under the light. This was buried? He asked. Possibly burned, I said. Or retrieved after something else burned. I refolded the cloth, pressed the compartment shut, replaced it as it was. You said this came in with lot 47? Yes. Who received it? I don't know. Can you find out? He nodded. I'll need 15 minutes. I gave him 20. When he returned, he carried a clipboard. This was signed in by a temp. No photo ID, just a paper signature. J. Benson. That mean anything to you? No. Anything else logged with it? Just weight discrepancies. They thought the case weighed more than expected, but nothing was added to the catalogue. Where's the original manifest? Kevin blinked. What do you mean? The one submitted by the consignor. Oh, that's filed upstairs. Let's get it. He led me back through the elevator and into the administrative hall. On the third floor, a door marked Lot Processing Archives. Inside, a file cabinet labelled 2025 Autumn Series. Kevin pulled a manila folder. Lot 47, type description. 2 photos. 1, the chain poorly lit. 2, a sealed box, not the red velvet, the scorched box. This is what arrived, I said. Apparently, Kevin whispered. And someone swapped the casing, he nodded slowly, to clean it up. I pocketed the image, not the folder, just the photo. Don't lose your job over this, I said. I won't. Then don't talk about it. At all. Back at the brownstone, I set the photo on Wolfe's desk. He studied it. You've seen this? In person, I said. Auction basement. Second container. Scorched. Hidden compartment. Ash. Metal filings. A piece of union cloth. Wolfe's hands folded. It was never just a chain, he murmured. It was a vessel. A key within a key. And someone wanted it erased. Yes, Wolfe said. But poorly. Ash leaves scent. Cloth leaves threads. And someone forgot that even silence, if pressed, will leave fingerprints. I nodded. I think, Wolfe said, we're nearly there. The light from the west windows cut across Wolfe's yellow chair in clean afternoon streaks. He hadn't spoken for 5 minutes. That was long even for him. He was thinking. You could tell from the way his fingers laced over his belly, left thumb idle, right one twitching. The footstool remained unmatched. The orchid timer had been silenced an hour ago. Fritz had brought in cold lamb sandwiches with watercress. Wolfe hadn't touched his. Mine was gone. You have it, don't you? I said. He nodded once. The theory? He opened his eyes. I do, but it lacks corroboration. It does, however, begin to hold shape. Lay it out. He breathed in, long through the nose. Nathaniel Drayden, he began, knew precisely what he had. Not immediately, of course, but within days. The iron watch chain was no ornament. It was an object of encoded information. Whether his discovery came via that Civil War letter or by examining the chain itself, he arrived at a conclusion that frightened him. I leaned forward. He contacted his brother, left a vague but deliberate trail, baited Miss Vale, perhaps threatened Hammond. Either way, he meant to leverage what he found. To what end? I asked. Power, Wolfe said. Possession. He intended to control access to the location suggested by the chain's cipher, possibly the contents of the so-called Ash Bend vault. But someone silenced him first, yes, or neutralized him. Dead or vanished, that remains unclear. He shifted slightly. The floor creaked. The real question is not who would kill for the chain. It's who already believes they own what it points to. I stood. You want me to find out? Wolfe looked at me. Not yet. First, Mr. Panzer. He reached for the phone and dialed. When Saul answered, Wolfe's voice dropped half a tone. You will trace the history of a Civil War artifact. Iron, chain, custom clasp, sold recently under the name Iron Watch Chain. Begin with Barrow Hide, move backward. Virginia Estates, Paymaster Records, anything pre-1900 involving similar consignments. Call Mr. Goodwin with progress. He hung up. I sat back down. And me? I asked. You will speak with Mr. Hal Drayden. I blinked. What for? You will plant a doubt, Wolfe said. Not aggressively. but enough to provoke contradiction. What kind of doubt? That his brother might have lied to him, that the telegram he received may not have come from Nathaniel, that perhaps, in some way, he has already been made an accessory. That's dangerous, or Wolfe nodded, which is why it must come from you. I buttoned my jacket. Where? He is currently at the Lafayette Arms, apartment 5C. I raised an eyebrow. The same apartment Nathaniel vanished from? Indeed, Wolfe said. Mr. Hal Drayden has taken up his brother's residence. Curious, is it not? It was. 15 minutes later I stood in front of the elevator at Lafayette Arms. 5th floor, same hallway. Door marked 5C. I knocked. Hal Drayden opened it slowly. His face was pale. Mr. Goodwin. Mr. Pearson, Drayden. He stepped aside. Please. The room was neat. Too neat. As if someone had just learned how to live in another man's shoes. He offered me a chair. I declined. I came, I said, because we may have a lead, but it raises problems. He sat. What sort of problems? Forgery, deception, and the possibility your brother was playing more than one game. He looked down. You think Nathaniel lied? I think someone did. Maybe not maliciously, but you received a telegram, yes? Yes. Unsigned? He nodded. 3 dots. Ellipses. His head jerked. Yes. How did you know it was from him? I recognized the tone. Are you certain? He was quiet. I waited. Let the silence stretch. I assumed, he said finally. Assumption's a tricky thing, I said. You're living in his place, touching his papers, drinking from his cups, maybe even believing what he wanted you to believe. That's not fair. Fair's for judges, I said. I'm just asking the question. He stood, walked to the window. I thought he was in trouble, he said. Real trouble. He was, I replied, and he may have wanted someone else to take the fall. That got a reaction. You think he framed me? I think, I said. You need to ask yourself what he didn't tell you, and why. Hal turned. His hands shook. You don't understand, he said. My brother, he was the smart one, the charming one. I cleaned up his messes. I got him out of tax audits, gambling debts, failed appraisals. But this time, I couldn't find him. I couldn't even understand what he was chasing. What did he tell you about the chain? That it would change everything. How? He didn't say. I stepped forward. If he's dead, I said, we'll find out. But if he's not, he may be waiting for you to confess something in his place. Hal sank into the chair. I didn't do anything, he whispered. Then make sure that stays true, I said. I left him there. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe hadn't moved. Well? He asked. He cracked a little, I said. Guilt or confusion? I couldn't tell. He has adopted the apartment, Wolfe said. That is significant. Survivor's guilt? Perhaps, or inheritance, legal or otherwise. The phone rang. Wolfe answered, listened, nodded, hung up. Mr. Panzer, he said. He has a name. Let's hear it. Major Elias Rudd, Wolfe said. Union paymaster, died 1865. Carried the last shipment through Ash Bend. Never arrived. Declared dead by gunfire, body cremated, but no urn was filed. No remains? No documentation, Wolfe said, but the trail is warm. Rudd's estate filed a sealed inventory, in it a chain, iron, with an engraving listed as damaged by heat. I whistled. That's our box, I said. Wolfe nodded. Rudd is the key. Drayden found his name, traced it to the chain. The letter Miss Vale held was confirmation. And the location? Still unknown, Wolfe said, but I wager the final symbol on the chain, the one removed, pointed to it. I nodded slowly. Wolfe closed his eyes. And that, he said softly, is what someone would kill for. The knock was soft but exact. 2 beats, a pause, then 1. Fritz answered it, of course. Saul Panzer stepped in wearing his usual trench coat, carrying a flat leather folio like it contained someone's final decision. Wolfe didn't rise, naturally. I closed the office door behind Saul and returned to my desk. The air smelled faintly of onion confit. Lunch had been 20 minutes ago. Wolfe's empty saucer sat beside his elbow. Mr. Panzer, Wolfe said, voice even. Saul nodded once. You are right. The chain didn't vanish in obscurity. It was sold at a courthouse liquidation in Danville, Virginia, October 1903. He opened the folio. Estate of Major Elias Rudd. No surviving heirs. Property seized by county magistrate. 1 trunk of personal effects. 1 iron chain listed as unknown purpose scorched. Bought for $1 by a railroad engineer named Preston Clive. No address, only a badge number. Go on, Wolfe said. Clive's family listed the chain in a private auction catalogue in 1911, back in Danville. It went unsold. Reappeared again in 29, unmarked, during a foreclosure sale. Tracked forward through 7 hands, 4 auctions, 1 museum appraisal. None authenticated it. Landed at Barrow Hyde in 44, then disappeared. He flipped a sheet. Last private transfer, February 8th, 1947. Purchased quietly through a middleman named Diva Grant. I glanced up. Wait, that's the name on the Barrow Hyde intake. Saul nodded. Diva's dead. Died 6 weeks ago in Baton Rouge. The item was shipped by his son. Wolfe closed his eyes. The son, he said. Under what name? J. Benson. The Wolfe opened his eyes. The same used at Barrow Hyde? Yes. And the son's legal name? Saul tapped the folder. John Halbert Benson. He paused. Also known as Hal Drayden. He changed it after moving north. I didn't say anything. Neither did Wolfe. Saul set the folder down and sat. So Hal Drayden bought the chain, I said. Yes, Saul replied, with cash withdrawn from his personal bank in mid-January. Track through teller slips. Total sum matches Barrow Hyde's invoice, adjusted for premium. Wolfe's fingers tapped once against the armrest. Archie, he said, get the bank statements. I've already got them. I reached into the lower desk drawer and pulled out the envelope I tucked away after my visit to Lafayette Arms. His brother's not as tidy. I found the key taped under a coffee tin. Inside, Hal's banking records. Withdrawals in February. 3 entries, staggered, totaling the exact amount paid at auction. I placed the sheets on Wolfe's blotter. He scanned them once. Then Hal, he said, bought the chain himself and used his brother to retrieve something hidden. Saul looked up. The map? Yes, Wolfe said. The contents of the scorched box, the real reason the chain was mounted as it was. But Nathaniel, being the cleverer of the two, discovered more than Hal anticipated. Perhaps decoded something. Perhaps simply decided he no longer needed to share. And double-crossed his brother, I said. Likely, Wolfe said. Or tried to. Saul folded his hands. So now, Hal plays the grieving sibling. Yes, Wolfe said. In the very apartment his brother vanished from. And that telegram he brought us? I asked. Wolfe snorted. A plant. Either forged by Hal or typed by Nathaniel to mislead him. Perhaps both. Saul tapped the folio. Want me to press him? No, Wolfe said. Not yet. We gain nothing by startling the mole from his burrow. Let him feel watched. Let him grow afraid of what we might already know. He turned to me. Archie, you will continue to engage him, casually. Make inquiries that seem harmless. Mention discrepancies without assigning blame. Allow guilt to do the labour. Understood, I said. Wolfe leaned back. As for the chain, it was never about the object. It was always a breadcrumb, an invitation, and the hands that passed it never saw what was inside. Saul nodded once. I'll keep tracing, he said. Wolfe waved a hand. Yes, and be careful. If this leads where I think it does, the trail will not remain quiet much longer. Saul stood, gathered his folder. I walked him to the front door. When I returned, Wolfe hadn't moved. I sat. He was good, I said. Calm. Wolfe grunted. But Hal's about to learn what pressure tastes like. Wolfe nodded. Yes, he said. And it won't be seasoned. The scent of cigar smoke lingered in the brownstone, braided with the faintest whiff of Fritz's rosemary rolls cooling in the kitchen, untouched, since it was not yet lunch. Wolfe, perched deep in the yellow chair that faced west, gave a low hum from the throat that meant he had begun to thread the needle. Archie sat at his desk, pen poised, but unused. Wolfe's gaze, though unfixed, hovered somewhere above the orchid prints. It never arrived, he said. I raised a brow. The chain? Yes. He leaned back, laced fingers resting on his stomach. The real iron watch chain never reached the auction house. I laid the pen down. Then what did Hammond and Corinne bid on? A forgery. Wolfe's voice was flat, ironclad. Someone intercepted the original, replicated it, and submitted the imitation. Our dearly departed Mr. Nathaniel, I believe, had already divined its secret. And used it, I added, to find the key. Wolfe nodded once. Precisely. That was the play. The object held a cipher, something embedded or etched, perhaps in a clasp or segment. When deciphered, it directed him to a key. That key was buried beneath the Civil War monument near Battery Park. I blinked. He went digging in public daylight? Not he, Wolfe replied. He arranged for the digging to occur under cover of maintenance. A Parks Department permit was issued last Thursday. That tracked. Wolfe had probably seen the form 3 days ago and said nothing. The forgery? I asked. Crude, Wolfe muttered. Superficially similar but compositionally incorrect. Brass rather than iron. Slightly lighter. The clasp was machine cut, not forged. And the buyer didn't notice? Neither Hammond nor Corinne handled the object closely, Wolfe replied. Their interest was not in the chain itself, but what it might symbolise. Access, leverage, or claim. Which they thought Nathaniel was offering, I asked. Wolfe gave the faintest nod. Until he was no longer in a position to offer anything. There was a knock at the door. 2 knocks and a pause. Saul's rhythm. Fritz didn't open. I did. Saul Panzer stepped in without ceremony. Rain slicked his coat sleeves. His eyes scanned the room once, then landed on Wolfe. I've got the rest of it, Saul said. It'll hurt. Wolfe gestured toward the red chair. Sit. Saul did, unbuttoning the coat but not removing it. The original chain surfaced last in 1903. Confederate remnants from a Virginia estate sale. Item was seized by the US Army during a federal recovery raid. That was the Confederate paymaster case, I said. Saul nodded. Right. Vault emptied during retreat. Never fully recovered. There was rumour, a key, a cipher chain, a list of coordinates for where the treasury went. No documentation, just oral. Wolfe closed his eyes, not in weariness, but in satisfaction. And the auction chain? Saul reached into his coat and pulled a velvet box from his interior pocket. The real one, he said. Found it in Hammond's flat in Queens, hidden in a false bottom beneath the record player. I took the box from him. Wolfe did not ask for it to be opened. Instead, he said, Archie, tell me about the briefcase. That came from Kramer, I said. His boys did a sweep of Hal Drayden's law office last night. Found a leather briefcase, red-brown with initials burned off, torn at the corner, blood on the lining. Wolfe opened his eyes. They didn't find Hal, he asked. Not yet, I said. He won't return, Wolfe murmured. Not voluntarily. Saul crossed a leg, glanced down. There's more, he said. The lock on the briefcase was rigged. Custom tumbler. Nathaniel's prints were lifted from inside. That earned silence. Saul waited, then added, and there was a map. Not the vault map, I said. No, Saul replied. A hand-drawn local grid. Battery Park, Fort J, tunnels along the waterline, dated 1865, folded, brittle, reeking of camphor. Wolfe inhaled sharply through his nose. Ah, I turned to him. Ah? That was the final play, Wolfe said. Nathaniel discovered the key's location via the chain, retrieved it, then used the key to open something else, a safe or sealed location. Hal found out, I said. Yes, Wolfe agreed, and likely arranged to meet him under pretenses, to reclaim or seize the discovery. And Nathaniel didn't go down easy. No, Wolfe said, hence the blood. We sat a moment, rain thickening beyond the window. Why hold all this quiet? Saul asked. Wolfe finally shifted in the chair. Because Corinne Vale remains in play. Because Hammond believes the auction succeeded. Because Hal Drayden has not yet been found. Because we do not yet have the rest. Saul blinked. The rest. Wolfe glanced toward the fire. The treasure, Mr. Panzer. The thing men kill over. It still lies somewhere between ink and earth. I looked down at the velvet box on my desk. And the fake? Filed in evidence, Saul said. Kramer's boys catalogued it. Does he know it's fake? I asked. Not yet, Saul replied. Wolfe grunted. He will. Soon. I said, so we call them all in? Wolfe shook his head. No, not yet, but soon. We allow the silence to steep. A long breath passed between us. Then Wolfe said, tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock, all parties will arrive. I nodded. You want me to call them? Yes, Wolfe said. Extern, personal, hung on his arm. I closed the door and took my seat to the left of Wolfe's desk. "You have my assurance," Wolfe said, his voice dry as fallen leaves, "that this is neither a social nor idle gathering." Hal smiled. "That's so. I'm flattered all the same." Kramer exhaled loud enough to flap the pages in his folder. "I assume," Wolfe continued, "you have brought what I requested." Drayden placed a leather folio on the desk. "My firm's acquisition documents for the chain, as requested." "Good. Mr. Goodwin," and I rose and retrieved the box from the sideboard. It was the one we'd recovered from the auction house basement, soot still smeared beneath the lid. Corinne stared at it. "You'll find," Wolfe said, "this is not the packaging seen at the auction. This is older. By design." Drayden's brow furrowed. Wolfe's fingers traced the edge of the box. "Do you recall, Mr. Drayden, the insignia beneath the foam?" "I remember," I said. "USP. Faint, charred into the wood." "Which stands for Union Supply Provisioners," I answered. "A wartime logistics firm disbanded after 1869. Drayden said nothing. Corinne spoke. "You think this belonged to my grandfather?" Wolfe did not look at her. "The original chain? Yes." Kramer leaned forward. "And you're saying what was auctioned wasn't?" Wolfe lifted the chain replica from a velvet cloth. "You will note, Inspector, the patina. The links are artificially dulled. A chemical solution, ammonium sulfide, if I am not mistaken. A forgery, expensive, convincing, but not untouched by age, as a Civil War artifact should be." "Wait," Hammond said. "You're saying the item we auctioned was not what was intended, it was replaced." Drayden's lips parted slightly. "Do you have proof of that?" Wolfe looked at me. "Saul Panzer," I said. "Traced the chain's provenance back to a shipment recovered in 1903. Paymaster's vault gone missing during transport in Virginia. No documentation after that, not until it surfaced with Nathaniel Dumont's notes, a month before the auction." Corinne's eyes narrowed. "So Nathaniel did have it." Wolfe turned very slightly in his chair. "Nathaniel deciphered the chain's internal mechanism. It was not decorative. It concealed a sequence, a mechanical cipher, revealing a coordinate grid, and those coordinates led to the map," I finished, "buried under the war monument in Westchester County, along with a brass key, the one that matches the lockbox beneath Nathaniel's fireplace." Drayden stood. "I'd advise you," Kramer said, hand near his holster, "to sit down." Drayden didn't move. Wolfe spoke evenly. "You purchased the chain with funds drawn gradually from 3 accounts. We have the ledger." Corinne looked at him. "You lied." "I made an investment." Wolfe's gaze never shifted. "You knew Nathaniel had the key. You let him do the dirty work, then intended to remove him once the recovery was confirmed." "That's speculation." Kramer's voice was sharp. "You staged the disappearance, Drayden, dumped the shoe in the reservoir, burned the map, but you missed one thing." Drayden didn't blink. "Which was?" "The key," I said. Wolfe opened the scorched box. "It was here the whole time, not in the chain, not in the map. Nathaniel knew that. He planted the chain to throw you off." Corinne stood stunned. "You killed him," she said quietly. Drayden's mouth tightened. "I didn't kill anyone," he said, but his hand trembled as it hovered over the folio. I saw the smallest tick beneath his jaw. And then, without warning, his knees gave. The room fell into silence, thick, heavy, brutal. Wolfe did not gloat. He only sighed. "Men," he muttered, "who plot with the intellect of turnips." Kramer nodded to the officer at the door. "Take him." As the cuffs clicked around Drayden's wrists, Corinne remained still, her face pale, eyes locked on the box. She looked as if she were standing inside a memory, one she had never asked for. When the room cleared and Fritz returned with a fresh pot of coffee, Wolfe leaned back. "There is still the matter," he said, "of motive." I turned. "Greed?" "Regret," he said. "Not for Nathaniel, for the bloodline. He wanted the treasure, but he feared what it meant." Corinne approached the desk. "I never saw the chain," she said. "Not once." "You wouldn't have," I said. "Your grandfather never brought it home." She picked up the scorched key from the velvet. Her fingers trembled. "What happens to it now?" she asked. Wolfe looked over his spectacles. "It is evidence," he said. "But in time, perhaps, history will let it go." She turned slowly and met my eyes. "Thank you," she said. I escorted her to the front door. Outside, the city was hushed. Steam curled up from grates. Her taxi waited beneath the amber glow of a gaslight. "You never got the chain," I said. She shook her head. "No, but I did get the truth." She stepped into the cab, and for the first time since she'd walked into the brownstone, I saw her smile.